matted. You can feel it digging and looking for traction. Hell yeah. I have the kick turn function enabled. We're gonna basically come here, full left on the wheel, at the throttle, and then work our way up the hill. Turned even sharper than I was expecting. How about that? So that would have been a 3-point turn without question, and we just slid up the hill. That's awesome. And yeah, love that we can still monitor gauges and temperatures. And yeah, what a cool feature. You can see right here, basically, this Rivian in front of us doing a similar thing, I think. Or at least he was attempting to get up the hill there. This might be too much of an angle for it, but worth a try. Yeah. Oh yeah, easy. And then we just shoot it right up the hill. What a cool feature. And yeah, just if you're gonna leave a deep rut afterwards, just fill it in. Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. I recently had the opportunity to go to California to drive the new Rivian Quad-Motor. This is the Generation 2 1,025 horsepower big boy that they have on offer. And based off the title of this video, you can tell I'm less than thrilled with everything. That is not to say that it's a bad vehicle at all. In fact, many of you know that I own two Rivians. I own my first generation early truck. It's the single best thing I've ever spent money on. I love that vehicle. And we have a new Generation 2 R1S that's been fairly okay, a really nice vehicle, but did leave us with some quality issues on delivery. And with the new Quad-Motor, Rivian is touting this as their new top spec, highest performance, highest off-road capability, the massive spider web of capability that they can offer. It's got everything they can throw at it. But I don't think they threw enough at it. It's really, to me, not enough of a differentiated vehicle compared to the rest of the truly fantastic models in their lineup. So throughout this video, don't take any criticism from my side as saying that Rivian builds a bad vehicle. They actually build such a good base vehicle that most people probably don't need to upgrade for the Quad-Motor. That is also to say, I am not most people. I'm interested in buying the new Quad-Motor, and I'll explain to you why, the thought process, and the type of person that probably should go for the Rivian Quad-Motor, because there are some pretty incredible features and really nice upgrades along. So, yep, I think that's going to be the purpose of the video. If you don't want to watch the whole 30-minute long clip or however long it'll be, that's my summary. Let's get into nerding out about my time with the new Rivian Quad. I'd like to say a huge thank you to the CCAN Action Fund for sponsoring this video. Guys, we've worked with them on their fantastic electric vehicle giveaways over the years, and this year is bigger than ever. Truly, the prizes are insane, and your chances of winning are extremely high as well. If you happen to enter for your chance to win, and you do win first place prize, you can choose between a Rivian, a Porsche Taycan or Macan, or a Lucid Gravity or Air. Absolutely amazing electric vehicles to choose from for the first place prize. But also there's a second opportunity for a chance to win. You could choose between a Hyundai Ioniq 5 or Volkswagen ID Buzz. And for third place, first time ever, they are giving away a Chevy Equinox EV. All you have to do is head to the link in the description below to purchase your ticket to enter for your chance to win. And of course, it goes to supporting a great cause as the CCAN Action Fund is fighting for clean energy. Thanks so much to CCAN Action Fund for sponsoring this Out of Spec video. Let's get back to the live action. So this is not my first time driving the new Generation 2 Rivian Quad-Motor. I've been lucky enough to have the opportunity almost 9 months ago, I drove an early prototype of one on a closed course, absolutely sending it. And I'll leave that video down in the description below where I compared the dual motor, the tri-motor, and the new Quad-Motor side by side, same driving conditions, and essentially ended the video saying the dual motor's the one to have. It's the one that felt the most natural, the most balanced. It was, most reasonably priced, and it still offered a performance level higher than 90% or more of average drivers would ever get to. And that was always the interesting thing with Rivian, and my takeaway from that initial drive was if you get out of the Quad-Motor and into the dual motor, going from top to base, most people wouldn't notice. Like there's not even an auditory difference. There's no difference whatsoever. And I thought, okay, well, I think Rivian's got to do a little bit more here with the quad to justify the extra price. So it is a little bit more money. So let's start with what the new quad motor is and what it comes with. So the first thing we should talk about is the price and what you get for it. R1T is $5,000 cheaper than R1S, even though it's a longer vehicle. I think it just comes down to R1S is in more demand, so they can charge a little bit more for it. Personally, I've always been an R1T person. Yes, I own an R1S and a T. However, the T to me has got a 14-inch longer wheelbase. It's way more settled down on the road. I think looks just as good, if not better, and you've got a bed you can put stuff in. So many people need an SUV, need to put stuff in there, and the R1S is awesome, and the shorter wheelbase can help off-road as well, just making it a little bit more nimble. So both vehicles are great choices for you. I don't think enough people go for the R1T. Personally, I love the R1T, but, buy whichever one you like. We have both, and they're both pretty cool. And so the R1T starts at $115,990 for the new quad motor. The R1S is $121,990, basically 116 grand, 122 grand. That's before the launch edition. So the early vehicles are going to be built only in two configurations. It's the launch green, which is back. We've known it's going to be back because I saw it in the factory and posted a photo of it. So that's going to be back. And you can only get that with black interior, which I think is kind of lame. I think Rivian built some beautiful interiors, and the black, for me, it's good. A lot of people will go for it, but I want launch green with a better interior. Not possible. And then they'll also do the storm blue slate gray combination, which I think is a great combination for the launch edition. The launch edition's $4,000 more, and I don't really know what they give you. They give you a camp speaker. They give you a key fob, both of which, I have the camp speaker in my R1T. I've used it like maybe twice in the last 3.5 years of ownership. The key fob, whatever, you can buy one as an accessory. They give you, and then free software updates for the autonomy platform and their like Connect Plus, which is just a few dollars a month. Like 10 or 12 bucks a month. So I don't think it's worth getting the launch edition. I would skip that. Skip the launch edition. Not worth the $4,000. That's lame. That should be like, it should be free. They shouldn't charge you for that at all. Lame. That's just the feeling. Rivian just trying to squeeze money out of people. Like, just stop. You're giving everyone a camp speaker. It's not $4,000 worth of stuff. Then, in terms of the specs on the vehicle itself, it comes with the same battery pack as the other models. So if you get a dual motor max pack, a tri, or a quad, you get the same NMC Samsung 53G 140-ish kilowatt hour usable battery pack, which is an okay battery. They actually seem to hold up really well with minimal degradation with high mileage, which is a plus. They have just released a new software package that improves the DC charging performance. So it does about 220 kilowatt peak, and it can hold 200 kilowatts to 60-ish% state of charge, which, isn't impressive in the world of Chinese EVs and Taycans and new Cayenne electric and Lucid Gravity that charges at 400 kilowatts. So they're kind of at half the performance of the other models in terms of charging performance of their competition, which is kind of annoying. However, at least they're doing everything that cell can do, and it's a low voltage architecture, which is where they kind of limit on that peak charging speed. The main issue I have with this battery pack is the thermal management has not been upgraded for the quad motor at all. So if you guys remember when we were out on track, we were actually getting the tri-motor and the dual motor battery warm. The motors actually stay very cool in comparison to the first generation R1 quad motors. That used a Bosch motor that was sort of water glycol cooled in a jacket on the outside. There was no direct oil cooling, and so they overheat real quick, like the one that's in my Gen 1 Rivian. However, with the second generation, all motors are in-house permanent magnet, with direct oil cooling and hairpin windings, a lot of other little nerd stuff. I've done videos on them before. And so the motors actually are not the thermal limitation. It becomes the battery pack. And if you're going to get the quad motor, which is the top spec vehicle for performance, hopefully you're going to do performance stuff with it. Like, don't just buy it and drive it on the street. Go rally it, take it to track days, do fun things with it. Or, you know, and then the battery becomes a real thermal limitation because it has a central plate cooling with cells on top and bottom of that central plate. And you get these massive gradient temperature differences across the battery pack. And once it's warm, it has a really hard time recovering from being warm. And that's just a physical limitation of that battery. So I was really hoping to see Rivian for the quad motor did a completely different cell and battery cooling system architecture to compensate for having a lot more power output, which creates a lot more heat. But no, they've just kept the same battery. That's kind of lame. And then from a towing perspective, they remain unchanged. The performance is the same. R1S, very respectable, 7,700 pounds for an SUV. That's right up there with, you know, Tahoe and Expedition. That's in that region. Very good. And then the R1T is a pretty impressive 11,000 pound towing capacity, matching Cybertruck, beating F-150 Lightning. And the Silverado EV is still the only electric truck, same with Sierra, that can do 12,500 pounds max tow. And yeah, pretty great towing. I love towing with my Rivian. They actually tow fantastic. So, and I've done many videos towing with Rivians. They don't have range and recharging becomes a problem, but the front charge port's nice and they tow really well because of that longer wheelbase and great suspension. So, that's sort of continuing, well, I guess just continuing on what is Quad. Quad is essentially, from a body standpoint, a fully spec'd R1S. So it comes with the big sound system, which is not great. It comes with the glass roof. It comes with the nicer interior. But essentially, if you get out of a Tri and into a Quad, which has their sort of nicer interior, Ascend interiors, no difference whatsoever, no change. So you're spending more money for a Quad with zero visual separation or differentiation, except for blue brake calipers and a gear guard badge on the back, which anyone can add to their vehicle. But that's okay. I was hoping for a little bit wider stance. Like when you look at what BMW M does or Mercedes AMG, or the list goes on, there's major styling differences, brake upgrades, suspension upgrades, different tighter seats, steering wheel changes. And with Rivian, they just painted the calipers blue and put a badge on the back. Kind of cool in a sleeper sense. Like I'm a huge fan of the E39 BMW M5, which it's almost hard to tell unless you're in the know between a standard 540 and the M5. But I think they should have done some more to differentiate here from a visual standpoint, and there is just no experience difference whatsoever between the cars until you drive them aggressively. Some other things to note is the acceleration and range figures, because honestly, very impressive acceleration. 1,025 horsepower peak. I actually bet it makes a little bit more than that. I think they just rated it there. Because Plaid is 1,024 in the Model X, so they did one more on paper, which is kind of cool. It's 2.5 seconds 0 to 60 for the R1T and 2.6 seconds 0 to 60 for the R1S. R1S slightly slower. Maybe it just can't get the power down on the front axle as much, would be my guess, because of that shorter wheelbase. Quarter miles, ripping 10.5, trap speed, 130 miles an hour. Sounds great. You can only get the 130 mile an hour trap speed or top speed of the vehicle in launch mode. If you're not in launch mode, the top speed is the same as a standard dual motor, 112 miles an hour, 113. It might flash up on the screen. So you only get the higher top speed in launch mode. I think they need to change that. Top speed should be available if you're ripping down the Autobahn or ripping on a track or doing whatever. Unlock the top speed of the Quad, because that is a limitation, not on public roads, but on private courses that a lot of Rivian owners who have done some track days have run into. The range is interesting. Rivian quotes 374 miles EPA in the most efficient configuration, mostly down to a wheel and tire. However, if you look on the website of all the Rivians available, if you look at dual, tri, and quad, they're actually rated in different key-up settings. So the dual motor, a lot of you know, will dynamically disconnect and reconnect the rear axle in all-purpose standard key-up setting. That is to get a higher EPA range. However, the quad motor offers that functionality in conserve mode as well. So the quad motor and the tri motor will start up in their all-purpose setting, which is essentially all-wheel drive all the time. All the motors are connected. You have the flux losses, the gear train losses of keeping all motors connected, but you can select conserve mode, which then will dynamically unlock and lock the rear axle so that you can reduce the drag forces going down the highway. If you look at the same setting for same setting of dual and quad, so most efficient, longest range to the quad motor, there is only about a 10 or 20 mile difference depending on R1S or R1T between the two, not the 30, 40, 50 mile spread that is communicated to the buyer. So if you know how to use drive modes, you're actually not going to lose much range at all. Probably a non-noticeable amount of range loss going to the quad motor over the dual motor. That's a real big pro for the quad because you can put it in that dynamic connect and disconnect setting in conserve mode. You can really extend the range in the EPA cycle. On the highway, that difference will actually get even closer together. So there will be almost no efficiency difference or very little noticeable difference across the entire Rivian range of highway efficiency, which is where range matters. Just wanted to clear that up because I think a lot of people are going to say, oh, I really want the quad, but what about the range? Wouldn't worry about it. If you just hit conserve mode, you'll get, they claim 400 miles of range in conserve mode in the EPA cycle. Pretty damn good in my impression. No issue with the range there. I do have issues just with large vehicles on the highway. You just consume a lot more, but in general, it's okay. And we've done many Rivian road trips to show you how that all works out. Other than that, there's two software features that are unique to the new Rivian Quad-Motor. There's a rad tuner, which is the coolest thing, and I'll get into that in a second. But there's also this new kick turn function that is really neat. The kick turn function essentially does the G-Wagon, electric G-Wagon spin thing. They call it the G-turn. Here it's called the kick turn. And for up to 20 seconds, I believe, it's the button timeout on the steering wheel is the limitation. You can have the outside motor spin forward, the inside motor spin backwards, and you'll spin in place. Really fun. It's a great party trick. There's no practical benefit really in my impression. It's just cool. And as a Gen 1 owner, I'm super jealous that we don't have this because I think it's awesome. The Gen 1s don't have the half shaft strength or the fine motor control to do all that longitudinal wheel speed control in the inverter. And so, you know, it's such a high hertz rate that's required to do something like this. So the Gen 1 owners are left out. That's okay. The Gen 2 owners will have it. There's very few use cases where this will be useful. It's also incredibly hard on the environment. Rivian used to say the reason they didn't offer this on the Gen 1 was for environmental protection or trail protection, tread lightly. That apparently has gone out the window. We're sending it now and digging up ruts, spinning around. I think it's awesome. Just use it responsibly. Make sure you're in a place where you really are okay to leave deep ruts. These are 7,000 plus pound vehicles that are spinning with a high rate of wheel speed, and it just digs itself down to the battery pack when you do the spins. Just be mindful. But it's a fun feature. I'm glad it has that. I loved it in the G-Wagon. I love it here. Super cool. But there's also a neat function with this quick turn, kick turn that allows you to do it in motion. So you can essentially be driving and hit the toggles on the steering wheel, which is how you control it. And you can just drive and then spin to the left in motion up to about 15 miles an hour. And that's a really interesting experience, a really fun experience. Again, some practical benefit, some party trick. It only works on low mu surfaces, so dirt, snow, ice, grass, mud. They claim it won't activate on hard pavement. It'll feel too much resistance and then kick off. But, we'll play around with that when we get one on test and see really how far can you push this before it says, oh, too grippy of a surface. So check out my little clip of me experiencing that right now. All right, so the goal here is to keep the wheel as straight as possible and just drive with buttons. That is going to be my goal to get through the course. So let's try it. So we'll basically get ourselves set up. We will turn so, turn like so. Can I correct it with the buttons? Oh yeah. I was trying to. This way. Hell yeah. And then we're through. Okay, so now let's just try one in rally mode. All right, this will be a lot different because I'm going to be working the wheel the whole time. Y'all ready? Can't even make it. But can we slide it through here? The answer is absolutely. Definitely a neat feature, kind of a cool party trick. Again, only available on the quad motor because you need individual wheel speed control. And I'm glad there is a quad motor differentiating feature across the Rivian range. As far as I can tell, this is the only feature that truly will forever be exclusive to quad motor and not make its way to the other vehicles in the lineup. Is it worth buying it just for that? No. Is it worth buying it for the acceleration in that? Maybe, but I still think no. Let's get to the other feature that Rivian claims is exclusively on quad coming in September. Both of these features launching in September. This is called the RAD tuner. RAD is the Rivian Adventure Department. We met some of those guys at Pikes Peak and some other events. Super cool. They're like the enthusiast M division inside of Rivian. So think AMG, you think RAD. Love that. Super cool. I wish they could do more, but they're probably strapped by production timelines and also cost, of course, is always a big thing here. So with the RAD tuner, you really unlock the full software capability to adjust how the vehicle drives. This is a dream come true for me. You can adjust throttle maps, you can adjust suspension damping and ride height, you can adjust suspension roll stiffness, you can adjust longitudinal wheel sleep separate from yaw rate and yaw slip that you can choose. There's a bunch you can do, even down to adjusting brake pedal feel, which is really nice because Rivian's always had this really unimpressive, spongy feeling, terrible brake pedal. You can actually back off some of the boost and get a stiffer, better to modulate brake pedal, which I love. I love a firm brake pedal. You can select that. And it's really awesome that you can go and fine tune and save presets. And when I get one, I'll save, I'll save some of my favorite presets and share them with you when we test the car out on track and off-road and many other scenarios. And you can actually even set up the car. They give you so much range of adjustment. You could make it drive terribly. Like I was playing around with this and I came up with the worst possible configuration, which was kind of funny. And the thing was all over the place and drove like ass. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. They're really letting users push the limits of what the hardware in the vehicle is capable of. Now, Rivian says this is exclusively on quad motor. However, I spoke to some people there and they mentioned there's no reason they couldn't add it at some point in the future to tri-motor and dual motor performance. Now, as an owner of a Gen 2 dual motor performance, I hope they do this because I'd love to play around with it on our R1S. Regardless, it's a really cool feature. And if it never leaves quad, this is a real big push to buy the quad over a tri-motor. Just getting this insane level of adjustment. To me, this is the feature that draws me the most to the new quad motor. I'm really excited about it. But again, nothing that couldn't come to the other models. So fingers crossed they do that as well, because Rivian's been pretty good about giving their customers everything they possibly can from a software perspective that their vehicle supports. So let's keep our fingers crossed for all of that. I'll do a whole video on RAD Tuner diving into the settings when it's the appropriate time. So that's really what the quad motor is. I think just to reiterate what is different about the quad motor versus the tri-motor and dual motor from a hardware perspective, the only change is adding another motor on the front axle. And that's kind of the least important place you need more power. So the tri-motor already gives you the dual motors on the rear axle. It's the same exact rear kit as this, same power, same everything. This just adds a bit more power on the front axle, which think about every time you're accelerating, the weight's off the front axle anyway, and it will spin the front tires. So for 99% of people, you don't really need the quad motor. I'm just going to say that. It's really cool. Get the 1,000 horsepower, the 0 to 60 if you configure it the right way. But in day-to-day driving, you will not notice. I mean, I didn't notice. I drove the quad on street even hard, and I was like, man, I kind of need a track to, demonstrate the weird torque vectoring capabilities and other things that having individual motors can do. Because on the street, the difference between the tri and the quad is non-existent, and even the dual and the quad is almost non-existent. It's pretty wild how similar these vehicles drive, and where I'd still recommend the standard LFP base Rivian to almost all of my friends and most people, unless you really plan on tracking it, rallying it, going off-road, doing everything possible, then spend the money, but you have to realize you're not actually getting that much for the extra money. And I'll get into what I'm kind of disappointed with a little bit later on in the video, which sums a lot of things up for you. So the differences are very minimal. There's those 2 software features, there's blue paint, some other stuff, but really, hardware-wise, it's an extra motor. No, same suspension, different tuning for the suspension, software-wise, no physical difference. So it's actually tuned to handle a little bit of the extra forces. So, their base level compression and rebound settings and some other stuff are the same, or are different, but the bushings are the same, the dampers are the same, the air springs are the same. That's all the same hardware, just a slightly different base tune. But again, with Rad Tuner, they let you adjust everything anyway. That kind of all goes out the window, in my opinion. So yeah, okay, maybe not really any differences between Tri and Quad, other than the extra motor up front. Let's talk about how it drives on the road, and that's a real thing. I drove the R1T while I was there. I think the R1T always drives better than R1S. You have a 14-inch longer wheelbase. The ride is so much more settled down. It eliminates a lot of the porpoising and other weird oddities that R1S has. R1T drives great, and that stays the same here. There is no diminishing performance on the road. It's just as comfortable. It's just as quiet. It's nearly as efficient in conserve mode. There's almost no downside to go with Quad other than cost over the other models. So if cost is not a factor, then you're still going to have a great driving experience with Quad on the road. Now, when you drop the suspension all the way, which is the only way to unlock the 1,025 horsepower, the ride quality goes out the window. Rides like ass when you slam it all the way down. But it does unlock full power. Rivian does power limitation by suspension height. So once you get those half shafts in line and you've got the thing slammed down, boom, now you've got the power, which I would be really curious to see R1S Tri or R1 Tri and R1 Quad in standard suspension drag race. I bet it's the same. I can't imagine there's much difference there. So you really only unlock the power, the extra, performance and lowest suspension. And then, it's fast. It moves. It feels pretty damn good. No question. I am the most jaded person on the planet. I daily drive a Model S Plaid, and of course my 800 horsepower Gen 1 Quad Rivian. I'm used to fast things. This felt in line with expectations. Got the power down. I was driving it on the new Pilot Sport S5 OE tire, their high performance tire. Really nice tire, expensive. So you're going to want to chew them up, but don't chew them up because it can get real expensive real quick. Very, very good performance in the straight line. Other than that, no difference between the other models. And that brings me to more on the performance driving characteristics of the R1 Quad, which I didn't really have the chance to do in California. I sat in traffic with it almost the entire time. So I'll do the full review here in North Carolina at the track when I'm able to. But in performance driving, having more torque vectoring capabilities, as long as the software supports it, will unlock some really interesting vehicle dynamics possibilities that I hope the Rad tuning division put some effort into, because I think you can do some really cool things with individual motor control. Last time I had it on track, they were not doing that, but that was a prototype from a long time ago. So hopefully after some iterations, they really are doing a bunch. And I should also mention that I had major issues with torque steer on the R1 Quad when I drove it on track, the prototype version of this. However, there is still some torque steer, yes, but it's not at dangerous levels anymore. It's totally manageable. So I think they fixed the issue of it just changing 4 lanes to the right when you mat the throttle. It felt a lot better tuned than the early prototype I drove. But the real downside here from performance driving would be the thermal management system. You're going to overheat that battery so quick and it can't cool itself. It's a real problem, I think. The suspension is the same, but it does allow so much adjustability and so much, range of settings that I think it's okay that it's the same. The inexcusable problem with the new quad motor that I can't believe more people are not upset about is the braking system. When Tesla launched the Model S Plaid, do you all remember the uproar of, wow, 1,000 horsepower, you didn't change the brakes and you get, 2 stops out of it and the brakes are on fire and that's just unacceptable. It's criminal. Well, Rivian's doing the same thing here and I'm screaming, it's criminal, it's crazy. What are you doing? 1,000 horsepower with a terrible performance braking system. You get 1 or 2 hard stops out of this brake before it goes to the floor and it doesn't do much. I can overheat the brakes on a Rivian driving on a back road in no time whatsoever. And now you've just thrown 1,000 horsepower at it and you've kept the same braking system. I actually talked to RJ about this, just went at this event and I was like, bro, love what you did, like really cool, 1,000 horsepower, but what's up with the brakes? That's crazy. He's like, well, we talked about doing big brakes, and then he's like, oh, we didn't do it. Like, why? So their argument is, well, the most drivers are never going to end up in the driving scenario where they require more braking. And my argument to that is you're building a top spec performance SUV that's going up against Cayenne, Gravity, even Aston Martin DBX and, Urus and, these really, Cayenne Turbo GT, these combustion things that have massive carbon ceramic brakes that are bigger than the size of my head. And then you made the decision that just because most people probably won't drive it hard, you're not going to put big brakes on it. Like, what about for the people who do? Or what about for the track tests or the media drives? Or what about for just the purpose of building a performance vehicle? And I was just like, dude, this is crazy. No big brakes on 1,000 horsepower, 7,000 pound vehicle with the braking system way undersized for what it can do. This is the real big oversight. So I hope Rivian will take the hint and make a factory upgradable braking package similar to what Tesla responded with by offering the track pack. I put the track pack on my Model S Plaid with the carbon ceramics, solved everything. You can come flying into corners and pound on the brakes all day long with no thermal issues. Rivian needs that too. And when you start putting a lot of power in a vehicle and saying you're going to go up against the big boys and this is your top level model, supporting modifications are needed. I mean, this is like basic car modification 101 for enthusiasts. Upgrade brakes first, then power. And Rivian was just like, all power, baby, send it. So really frustrating from my opinion. And I think it's dangerous. I really do. Now, and also the point where they're like, oh, most customers aren't going to drive it hard. Why build it? Why make something so capable with so much power, with so much functionality if you think your customers are never going to use it? That's not a great argument. I love RJ. I love the people at Rivian. This, to me, seems like a massive product planning blunder. It's a real problem. So then we get to off-road driving. That's the performance driving on-road. I really think you're never going to experience a difference between dual tri and quad on the street, and no one will experience that. That's my honest feedback. Off-road driving is where Quad-Motor can do some really cool stuff, but I still have some issues. So let's talk about what's improved with the new Quad-Motor. Stall torque is fixed. I'm happy to report that this thing can climb itself over rocks with one motor starting at 0 RPM. And, basically stall torque is getting an electric motor to go from 0 to 1. It's actually really hard for an electric motor to do that. And so now you just have so much more torque on each wheel that the need for mechanical lockers is lessened, not eliminated, because now each motor can move the vehicle along a bit better than the Gen 1 quads can. They've also changed the entire throttle mapping where when you're in those situations where 3 wheels are free spinning and you're trying to crawl up a rock, in the early Gen 1 vehicles, you'd have to drive around that because you'd have to go wide open throttle or really deep in the throttle pedal to say, hey, I need at least one of these motors to give me everything you got. And that meant 100% throttle to climb over stuff. Now what they do is they try to simulate more of a natural feeling where you can roll into the throttle. The software will determine to give whatever motor has traction the most power, and you're not super deep in the accelerator pedal to get it to move. You still need, in order to get up over obstacles, a pretty big global torque request from the throttle pedal. And this is where it gets awkward for a lot of traditional off-roaders. And I watched, many other journalist friends of mine who I know are fantastic off-road drivers get a little bit confused with the Rivian. Because every wheel and motor is unlinked, the vehicle doesn't know you're spinning tires or about to spin tires until you're spinning them. So what's weird is when you have a traditional mechanical locking, let's say you've got triple lockers, center diff, front and rear. If one wheel is spinning, all of them are spinning when you're locked up because everything's locked into one speed. So when you hear wheel spin off-roading, a natural off-roader would say, oh, I'm spinning all my wheels and tires. All my tires have no traction because if I hear something spin, they're all locked. They must be spinning. In the Rivian world, you actually spin a lot. So you're hearing on rock crawling everywhere because all three motors would be, mechanically unlinked getting wheel spin. And the only way to climb the obstacle in that scenario is to give it more throttle. And so the natural reaction to someone is to back off when you hear wheel spin. With a Rivian, you have to give it more to tell that one motor with traction to get up over an obstacle. It's a driving style difference. It's just, once you understand how the system works, it makes total sense. But myself and a lot of the other folks that were at this event who are keen off-roaders were all like, the spinning thing's cool. It's fun to watch the software work. It's quite loud and noisy and abusive on tires to be spinning them all the time to get up over stuff. And to be fair, they do have to spin less than in the Gen 1 quad motor to climb over obstacles. It's a really nice improvement off-road from the first generation Bosch systems. Don't get me wrong. A really big improvement. But we're all just like, give us lockers. Let us have mechanical locking diffs. Figure out how to do it with independent motors. Just lock that thing up. It would be a dream. And so, still want mechanical lockers, but they've done a really good job through software to make this handle well off-road. Should also mention every quad motor comes with the underbody protection as standard, whether you get a performance or off-road build, which is pretty cool. And in general, I think off-road, these are incredibly capable vehicles. We all know that. You can go anywhere in a Rivian. They make off-roading so easy. So many people I've met had never been off-road before they bought a Rivian. They went off-road and now they're addicted and they're going places and the car gets them out into the wilderness. And that is, to me, one of the most impressive things about Rivian is how easy they are to wheel in extreme situations. The suspension capability is insane. Really fun to go off-roading. Highly recommend anyone to do it. Do you need a quad motor to go off-road, or is the tri or dual motor fine? I really think those are fine as well. Like the dual motor does brake-based torque vectoring. It does a really good job. I actually thought better job than the Gen 1 quad motor, and that can get you pretty much anywhere. Again, mechanical lockers would be great, but we all know how great these are off-road. The new quad motor off-road, really, really fun. Add in the kick turn features for certain rare scenarios. It makes it a really cool vehicle to wheel. So, in summary, I'm going to save some more of the super nerd details before I get one on test. In summary, there's two ways to approach looking at the new quad motor. There is the 1,000 horsepower, absolutely insano machine, 7-passenger, 1,000 horsepower mom hauler that can do a 10-second quarter mile at 130 miles an hour. That's awesome. Really cool. Also very capable off-road, also very premium, also looks great, does all the stuff. I think most people would be fine with the dual motor, but the quad is just a cool thing. And you really only the enthusiasts will know if you got a quad over a dual, looking at the blue brake calipers and the gear guard badge on the back. That's kind of cool. I like that on one hand, I like that it's understated. On the other hand, I wish they visually did more to beef up the looks to justify the extra cost. The extra, $15,000, $10,000 more for the quad. So on one hand, super awesome that they did this, super awesome that the rad tuner's in there, and that's really cool. On the other hand, if you're going to make a top performance model product, it needs the supporting hardware and I think a little bit of flair to back up the extra price and the extra performance. With an electric car, when you add more power, your daily driving experience remains the same. You don't get a V8 versus a V6 startup noise. You don't get different shift patterns. You don't get burbles out of the exhaust. And so I think there needs to be some other things to make you feel like, oh, this is the quad, this is cool, this is special in a daily driving experience. Otherwise, most people will not experience or notice any difference between this and the standard car. And that's the path Rivian took. And to me, it it's really cool, but I really don't think anyone needs to buy this unless you're really going to be pushing the limits off or on road often. Because even the dual motor on track was hilariously fun and very drifty and really enjoyable. So it's more of just a cool thing. Do I want one? Yes. Am I annoyed that they didn't do enough with it? Absolutely. I think the brakes is just a terrible decision that they did not upgrade the braking package or the thermal management. And those are things that it really needed. So yeah, that's why I'm left disappointed with the new quad motor. The real hardcore mechanical components that needed upgrades were not upgraded because Rivian believes their customers will not drive their cars hard. They probably have the data to prove it. It's really unfortunate from my side as someone who loves performance vehicles and wants to see them done right and done with the sort of European mentality where you make a total system of a vehicle that can handle super hard driving. Rivian didn't get the memo. I think they did the least amount possible to justify selling this at a more expensive price, and it really doesn't cost them much more to build it. So I'm excited to see them out on the road. I'm excited to get mine one day. Yeah, probably get it. Might as well. And then we'll just upgrade the brakes and I'll be happy. But as always, I thank you for watching another Out of Spec Reviews video. Our Rivian referral code is linked in the description below. Dual motor's the way to go still. I think that's my recommendation. And I'll see you on another one again soon. Bye-bye.